Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, folks. I'm Michael Liebowitz. Obviously, I'm here alone today. I could not get Jim Valliant to fill in. Mark is on an airplane, and my dogs right now are going absolutely sick because perfect timing. An ambulance just went by. So, as you can see, I'm a little underdressed here. So I had a very rough night's sleep last night. I finally got back to sleep a little after 6 this morning, slept until a little after 8. So long story short, late start, didn't even get a chance to shower. So here I am looking like a bum, but I assure you my thinking is not that of a vagrant. I do hope that you will come for the questions with the questions today, because it would be a big help to me. Ian Gilmore says that Yaren is horning in on my time slot this morning. Well, shame on Yaren then, right? No, that's fine. Competition's good. I don't mind it. But I did see a question here that I wanted to get to right away. Oh, first, remember, although I am the vice chairperson of the American Capitalist Party, the views that I share on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the American Capitalist Party. But I do also host my own podcast, The Rational Egoist, which absolutely reflects my views. And today we have a great out with the podcaster Jacob Berman. It's about Christianity. He's got an interesting take, and I think you will enjoy it. So please check that out. So I can't find it, but I don't think I need to. Race Jacobson asked me what made me switch from what the hell was it now? I forget. Oh, he asked me why I switched from radio to podcast. Very simple, Race. I could not get a job on the radio, so I decided to start my own podcast. Should a lucrative radio job come around, I would be sure to take it. You can count on that. So what other questions do we have here? Everyone's going, it's going a little too quickly for me to chime through. Let me just go through. Something about fangirls. I didn't know I had them. Lee says she would have filled in. She's always willing to fill in. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. Okay, so I want to start off with something that I'm going to use a template to illustrate a point, but I don't want to get bogged down into the specific subject matter because that is not really of the highest relevance to what we're going to be talking about. I had a post on Facebook. I post the reels from my shows, whether they be these or the Rational Egoist. I post reels from it so that people can see and maybe get drawn to the show. And I had a reel from Jim Valliant, and somebody chose to come in and attack the character of Jim Valliant. And the reason that they attack Jim's character is because of his thoroughgoing defense of Leonard Peikoff and Leonard's marriage. Now, the person then not only commented on my post, but then went and made his own post about it. So, I went in and I asked him. He says justice is of the utmost importance to him. So I asked, okay, so do you know the people involved? For instance, do you know Leonard Peikoff? Do you know Leonard Peikoff's wife? Have you seen them interact with each other? Have you seen the psych reports? Have you seen the investigative reports? Have you seen the report that cleared Grace of any wrongdoing? And his answer was that he once met Leonard in a green room at an event in the early 2000s. I'm sorry, that doesn't cut it. I know, I believe far more it's likely than he knows. And I don't have a personal strong opinion on it. I have a strong opinion on Jim Valliant and Jim Valliant's character, but I also understand that anybody can make mistakes. Anybody can be flawed. And given that I don't know the individuals involved, I don't have a strong opinion. But I think it's a very problematic situation as my phone continues to buzz. Not only in this situation, but society in general, where people draw broad conclusions and express them with absolute certainty. And the certainty certainly, it's not justified. You're not in a position to know these things. And it's okay to say, I don't know, when you don't know. You don't have to come off and pretend that you know the entire situation. Stuart Margolis posted on the Peacock's issues, probably the best on this for all of us on the outside. Now, I understand, having an interest in things, and it's certainly okay to have a tentative opinion. But when you come out with all out certainty and attack someone's character, you need to have more than what you've seen on social media. I'm sorry. I mean, unless it's specifically the person's lying about something that you have, personal information about. But we see this type of thing frequently, and it seems to really permeate the society that we live in when it comes to influences, for instance, where they express so much certainty. They know there's an Epstein client list. They know that Epstein works for the Mossad. They, Candace Owens talking about whatever is actually a man, the former, I don't know if they're called first lady, whatever, of France. And this, I'm sorry, this just doesn't cut it for me. And I really hope that, we could do better. And part of my mission with doing the podcast, The Rational Egoist, and then of course this one, is to get people to think, to actually apply reason, to understand what we're in a position to know, what we're not in a position to know. And that's okay to understand. It's okay if we don't know things. Okay, so I have a question. That's that for that. Unless somebody has questions, of course, I'll answer them. So Race Jacobson, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're behind the times. Race says, speaking of Jim, do you think you could do a podcast on his take of Christianity as a Roman psyop against the rebelling Jews? Yes, Race, I already did such an episode. I will send it to you later on. And so we have a question from Nicole Hingle. Well said, Michael. I was going to bring up Epstein and all the stuff I see on X about the list. Okay, I thought it was a question. Okay, of course it was not. It was my mistake. Akira Felix, leftists also bring up the Epstein list as an argument, Michael. It's not exclusive to magatards. Okay, but I didn't say it was. Anybody that does this, it's problematic. The thing is, you have to understand something, that in my social media feed, I'm not inundated with stuff from leftists. I'm inundated with stuff from people that consider themselves on the right. So that's largely what I comment on, unless I go out of my way, for instance, to read an article in Mother Jones or the Jacobin. But when I go and read that stuff, it's largely what I want to see are, economic issues, political issues. I'm not so much interested in the cultural or the sensationalist stuff. But Deeper Diego says, this is a psychological deficit people have. When one person hears a story, something inside the individual has to pipe up and do a whataboutism. Okay, well, I'm going to let Akira Felix and Deeper with Diego argue that out. Something that really has me concerned, and people, a lot of people said, with the Trump administration, there's going to be tyranny. He's an authoritarian, that sort of thing. People say it's coming. Other people say that's ridiculous. But you ever hear of course you have, but most of you have anyway, the metaphor of the frog in the boiling water, where the frog just sits in cold water as it boils. He doesn't realize it, and then he ends up boiling to death. And Trump has now declared how many emergencies? He declared an emergency over the trade deficit, so he had to have the power to put forth tariffs. He declared an emergency in LA in order to combat illegal immigration. Now he's declaring Washington, D.C. to be an emergency, and he's going to send the military in there, as he did out in LA. And he also is saying that maybe we have to employ this model in other cities. This is real authoritarian stuff. I mean, firing the Labor Department person because the person gave him bad numbers on the economy or on the labor market. These are things that, when you read about in history, you understand these are things done by an authoritarian. Trump also wants to declare an emergency and bomb cartels. This is authoritarian stuff. And we really, those of us who are interested in freedom and liberty, we need to combat these things. And it's very important not to get bogged down in tribes. This is my side, that's my side, whatever. We just need to combat tyranny. Now, had Kamala Harris been in office right now, I'm sure there would be an abundance of things to criticize her for, her, wokeism, her economic arguments, her policies, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, Kamala is not in office. Joe Biden is not in office. The person that we have in office is Donald Trump, who clearly has a penchant or a penchant for authoritarianism and a tendency to really praise authoritarians. And I think that this is something we really need to combat. Now, I saw a good question back here that I wanted to answer. So Kat Sterling wants to know, which group do I believe is more likely to listen to rational arguments and potentially support the American Capitalist Party? I don't think that there's a group, Kat, that is more likely. I, at one point in my life, really would have answered that question with the right, because and by the right, I just mean conservative Republicans. There's different definitions and it's real sloppy. I really don't like to use it, but I don't know that we have a better term. The problem is my experience now hasn't supported that. So I ultimately don't know. My experience tells me that people who will actually read books, rationally engage arguments, tend to change their minds and support capitalism. But getting people to do that, I mean, you look, Atlas Shrugged, one book. Look how thick it is, right? I mean, you get a book like Milton Friedman's. I just dropped all my business cards. That's okay. Monetary History of the United States. It's a very big book, and it seems that people don't want to read. And then, especially when you add to that the complexity of what you're reading, and many people, I should say, don't want to engage that sort of thing. So, my short answer is I don't know. Darren Dubose, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. If I did, like I said, I apologize. He says, what do you think about AI? Okay, so this is an area, like I talked about before, where I'm woefully uninformed. I like AI. In general, I think that the doomsayers throughout history have been wrong, so I'm very skeptical about the apocalyptic predictions in regard to AI, but I just don't know. I did a very good interview with an AI expert, Jonathan McDonald, on the subject. He is very concerned about the potential dangers of AI, and he's a very smart guy, and he certainly made sense, but I'm just not really in a position to assess that. Somebody criticized my teeth. Okay, so Werdsky wants to know what happened to my teeth. Okay, so what happened to my teeth is that in prison, I jumped off the top bunk. I bounced off my sneaker that was on the floor, and I landed on my face and chipped the front tooth. I really don't want to get it fixed. I don't really care, but somebody, the dentist, tells me that I should get it capped because, the danger or something of tooth erosion or whatever. Vincent Martinez wants to know, am I Jewish? I'm an atheist. I don't know if that helps. I'm an atheist, dyed in the wool. I have a Jewish last name, for what it's worth. I certainly don't care if people think I'm Jewish. I definitely won't cower to bigots or anti-Semites. I don't really care. I don't know why you would ask that, though, Victor. I mean, whatever. Maybe you're just curious, or maybe you're a troll. I'm sure we'll find out as we go forward. Manu says that AI is a good topic to talk about on philosophy and psychology. Sure. Nicole Hingle, why do you think young people are drawn to socialism? Is it a lack of life experience? Wow, that's a good question, Nicole. And let me just say, this is, a lot of speculation on my part, but it's speculation based on a lot of experience and a lot of reading. I think, one, that young people tend to be idealistic and rebellious. And so they want perfection in society. They see problems and they're told that it's, what's the word I'm looking for? That it's a result of capitalism or all the problems. I mean, when they start in school, they're learning this stuff. They're learning critiques of society, and they grow up, and so they tend to fall in line. I think they don't know what socialism really is. Again, they haven't engaged the arguments of an Ayn Rand or a Ludwig von Mises, so they just don't know. But I think it's more prevalent amongst the young, and I'm hopeful that they'll learn and they'll grow out of it. I just saw a question. Dogma Felix, I hope I pronounced your name right. What characteristics do you think a capitalist corner potential member would have? A member of the capitalist corner? I don't know that we have members of the capitalist corner. We have listeners, we have an audience. My hope is that the type of characteristics that they will have is to have an active mind that's governed by rationality, and they want to learn. They can certainly come and argue and dispute with us if they do so rationally and respectfully. That's what I'm hoping that they have, but I don't know, what they absolutely would have. I'm seeing more questions. Let me. Ray Jacobson says, does he mean the party? He may. If you mean the party, then thanks, Ray, for saying that. If you mean the party, then the characteristics that somebody would need to have is just to want to have a rational governing policy that's based on the protection of individual rights, that doesn't want the government interfering in our lives or in the economy unless it's to protect somebody's rights. So that would be the type of character that I think would join the party, and we're hoping to grow that. Persephone, why do you think there's such a huge misunderstanding of what capitalism is? Someone on TikTok, on my TikTok, said all capitalists should be in prison or murdered. That's just stupid. I mean, that's beyond misunderstanding. That's like just dumb shit. But I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding because of, for instance, Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump's out there representing himself as a capitalist. People think Donald Trump's a capitalist. He's of no such, he's no such thing. So when they see that and then the media reports it, that's what they think. People think America is a capitalist country, although a 2-second Google search will tell you that America is a mixed economy. It's actually a welfare state. As are a lot of the countries in Europe. But as Greg Lewis says, it's the misuse of terms. Hold on here. Let's go through. I had a good question about the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire that I wanted to address, but I have to find it. I hate when I can't find stuff in this. I really wish that we had a... Okay, here it is. Your thoughts on LPNH, Third Reich, Eagle co-opting. I think that the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire are largely grotesque. I debated Jeremy Kaufman. He makes a lot of moral pronouncements. Then he says there's no such thing as objective morality. And then he concedes that it's all just about trying to get people attracted to the website of the LPNH. I think it's just a lot of garbage. I think the entire idea of merging far right culture crap with a liberty philosophy is nonsensical. I don't think that it can work. I think that in a free society, people certainly can have whatever type of ethics they want. They can try to create any kind of culture they want. But as somebody that's advocating for liberty, I think what we need to promote is a culture of rationality, not a culture of bigots. Do I think government should step in to mitigate negative externalities? That's a broad question, Ryan. Generally speaking, I would say no. But in the case, let's say pollution, right? If you'd have to show if a company or an individual are emitting toxins into the atmosphere that are actually causing or can demonstrably be shown to cause harm in such a way that it's a violation of rights, then I think yes. If it's a matter of people being displaced, for instance, by creative destruction, then no, I do not think that they should be getting in. If you could, they should be getting involved. But if you could be more specific, Ryan, I'd appreciate it. Okay, let me see. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of Persephone says, "Yeah, Michael. Imagine if you had someone that offered to manage your stream for you. Imagine a world." Persephone, you know what? I think I'm going to take you up on that. I think I'm going to, and I still have to go through. Poor Persephone is a saint. She sends me so much stuff that I have to read, and I don't get to it because I'm busy framing Gilder. But I will get to that stuff, and I think that's a good idea, Persephone, to include you behind the scenes to moderate this chat, especially for days when Mark is not here and Jim can't fill in, and I'm, have to do the whole thing for myself. Let me see if we got a good question. If I've missed any questions, please just re-ask it. Ryan Robbins says, I believe the government banned CFCS because they were destroying the ozone layer. I'm sorry, I don't know what CFCS are. I really I apologize that I don't know that, but Manu, I will read the article. I know. If you only knew all the things that I have to read, I'm sounding like Mark now. but I do have a ton of things. But Ryan, can you please tell me what CFCS S's are? CFCs are? I don't know. I'm sorry. Chloral. I think they're something carbons, right? Air conditioning fluids. Carbon floral I don't know, whatever, but let me know what they are, Ryan. But no, I generally wouldn't support such a thing. It's such a what's the word I'm looking for here? Remote problem in my view. Okay, it's the propellant inside aerosol cans. Yeah. Again, this is a topic I'm not an expert on, so I certainly can be convinced the other way. But my what's the word I'm looking for? The tendency that I have is to say, no, I would not support the government doing it. And again, it's for the same reason about my take on AI is because the doomsayers have been wrong over and over and over again. I would highly recommend for anybody interested in just how wrong they've been, Julian Simon's great book, The Ultimate Resource or The Ultimate Resource 2. And he really details in great depth about the predictions that are just not coming true. Okay, Ryan Robbins says old school AC and refrigerating fluid, they would evaporate and travel to the ozone layer high in the atmosphere where they would bond with ozone particles and cause significant damage to the ozone. Okay, so that's kind of above my pay grade because I don't know the science behind it. I mean, I know the general theory, you burn a hole in the ozone and the sun gets in, but I don't know. But again, my general starting point is to be very skeptical of claims about how the environment is being destroyed and how, we're all going to suffer for it through the ecosystem or whatever. So I don't, the short answer is I don't know, but I'm very skeptical of claim. So my starting point is no, I would not support the government getting involved. Greg Lewis says, is there a general itinerary for the Capitalist Corner that is viewed as the approach to grow the viewer base? We are freewheeling it, Greg. I mean, we have some very helpful people on the side that are, they post for us, Ashley Rizzi is one. We have our great treasurer. Is she the treasurer? No, I think she's the secretary. Ariana Sneath is wonderful. Persephone's been great. Lou has been awesome. So we do have, a lot of people that are helping us. But Mark and I are terrible. I mean, I feel I'm pretty good at this, right? I can come on and I can talk and I can debate and I can be entertaining. I can do all that. But when it comes to promotion, tech stuff, algorithms, stuff like that, I am way, way, way over my head. So do we have any questions? Maybe if we don't, I can get to a story maybe. Right now, I'm being completely inundated with text. But this morning, my friend Subby, this is Race Jacobson makes the thumbnail. Sorry, Race, that I left you out. This guy says, "What do I do and who am I?" I appeared on his feed. Well, if I've appeared on your feed, then maybe the algorithm is doing well. What I do on this specific show is promote capitalism, discuss current events from a pro-capitalist perspective, a pro-reason perspective. Normally, I'm joined by Mark Pellegrino of Lost, Supernatural, and Dexter fame, and also the Big Lebowski and a bunch of other shows. But today I'm on my own because Mark is getting back home from filming. So, but that's what we do here. I'm also a podcaster. I host my own show, The Rational Egoist, where I discuss a variety of ideas from my perspective, but I bring different people on, different experts to talk about things: politics, economics, philosophy, psychology, self-help, that sort of thing, criminal justice. I sometimes do debates, which I have a lot of fun doing that. Manu wants me to talk about the party, and by that I presume she means the American Capitalist Party, of which I am the vice chairman, to make Diego happy. Instead of saying vice chairperson, he wants me to say chairman. I'm not going to say chairwoman, but yes. That's who I am. You can check out my other podcasts, or you can check out social media and see who I am. Lemming TV is a guy that wants to know, what do I think of historical socialist countries that were successful, and why did the USA have to sanction and isolate non-threatening socialist countries? So there are a few questions there. So I don't know about these countries to really dispute what you're saying, whether they were fully socialist and how successful they were or weren't. Chile, I know a little something about because of the Chicago Boys, and I know that they had an abundance of growth once they implemented the policies that were recommended by the Chicago Boys. But I also know that that was done, under the jackboot of Pinochet, or at least that's what I've been taught. So I don't know about the success of these countries. I'll certainly look into them. But I'm very skeptical of the idea that they were successful socialist countries. As for the United States sanctioning, isolating, and interfering, that's not something I would approve of. Whether they had to do it or not, I don't know. But like I said earlier, I certainly would not consider the United States right now a beacon of capitalism. I'm told to go back and find a question from whom am I? Katrin. Okay, Katrin. Katrin had one. Katrin had one. This is what I need Persephone for right now. Katrin, what do you think it is that people are afraid to think for themselves mostly? Oh, wow. I think there is a big fear of responsibility that some people have. I mean, it's not, I don't know how broad it is or how common it is, but I think that it's easy to be taken care of, right? So when I was in prison, for instance, they feed you 3 times a day. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about your electric bill. Your laundry gets done for you. You have a very regimented life, and that's comforting for some people. There's no risk involved. There's been psychological studies, a lot of them, on risk aversion, and some people are very risk averse. And it's also, I think, that sometimes people don't want the blame for things. If you ever see, there's a Jerry Seinfeld episode where Elaine wants to babysit, and she's talking about how responsible she is. And Jerry says, "Who the hell wants to be responsible? Whenever something goes wrong, the first thing they ask is, who's responsible?" And I think that is a serious issue, a serious problem. But there's probably an abundance of reasons why some people don't think for themselves. I think that a big thing has to do with self-esteem deficits, where people just lack self-confidence and lack self-respect. So I think that is a big problem. That doesn't, I can't address that. It's too much. Okay. So no questions. Now maybe I'll go and I'll check out the I would call it like Rush Limbaugh. You say he had his stack of stuff. I just have a bunch of articles on my telephone, some of which I sent to Mark this morning before he told me that he could not jump in. Oh, this is interesting. So I read an article in Psychology Today. Matter of fact, I'm going to share it to X right now. The article is titled "How Feeling Wrong Can Fuel Conspiracy Beliefs." I got to send this guy an invitation to come on my show. And what he says is that when people, that's not what I want to do. When people feel victimized, when they feel there's a lot of injustices against them, they are more inclined to embrace conspiracy theories, to think there is some kind of cabal against them that's causing this. And I thought that was interesting because in prison, there were a lot of people that embraced conspiracy theories. And often, sometimes it was because they saw themselves as victims. And if they're victims, then there's somebody that's victimizing them. But there was also a thing where criminals want to believe that everybody's a criminal, that everybody's crooked in some way, because in that way they're absolved of their own behavior, of their own lack of thinking, or their own rights violating behavior, their power thrusting, that sort of thing. So I'd highly recommend this article. It was really, really interesting to me, because I think that's true. And I'm very interested in why people embrace conspiracy theories, why they're prone to these things, and how the conspiracy theories become almost like a religion in terms of the faith that's required to believe them, in terms of the arguing, the dogmatic nature of the people arguing for them, in terms of how there's no evidence that will prove them wrong. So we have all that. Kat Sterling says it's paranoia in tinfoil hats. I met Kat Sterling, by the way, over the weekend. Very, very nice person. It was very nice to meet her. And Kathy was there as well. That was great. Lee, I wish you could have been there. But we did make a nice video for Lee. Okay, let me get back to the articles, unless we have a question here. No question. Back to the articles. Now, swipe back. This was another very good article, and I'm going to share this one right now as well to X. My girlfriend right now decides to go in the game we play, Words with Friends, here. So it comes across my phone, and I can't do what I need to do because I can't hit the post button. Now, she knows that I do the show at this time, so she knows I can't go in the game right now. But what are you going to do? So the article is called "Why You Shouldn't Ever Give Up Control," and it's that control is key to successful living. And the author goes on to explain how, if a rock, if the sun shines on a rock, it gets hot. If the sun withdraws, the rock gets cold. The rock can't do anything about it. But human beings, we can control. We can act to alter our environment. Living organisms all can do that. And I thought that was a great observation. But it got me thinking about control, because I'm somebody, I'll tell you in a second, Manu. So I'm somebody that has suffered, I don't want to say suffered. I'm somebody who has exhibited control issues throughout my life. And wanting to control everything can be a real problem, right? It can cause problems in our relationships. It can cause problems in our self-esteem and our psychology, because there's things in life we can't control. But on the other hand, right, we have to have control. I need self-control. I can't go back for that, second, third, fourth piece of cake like I want. I can't eat pizza every day if I want to be healthy. I have to put forth the effort to get this show up and running on time. I have to read the article. So I have to control myself. I need to be, I had to exercise this morning. So I had to put forth that control, even knowing I wouldn't be able to shower till after the show. So control is vital, but at the same time, we don't want to overdo it, right? And I guess it's kind of like the serenity prayer, although, like I said, I'm an atheist. But the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think it's very important for us to know what we can control and what we can't control, what we should control and what we shouldn't control. And it's not always easy to know. I mean, these are things that, I struggle with. I'm sure other people struggle with. And so, it's something that needs to be worked on. And, I can't wait to do this show with Mark, the intersection between philosophy and psychology, because personal growth is so important to me. And I think that there's a tendency sometimes when you see people, on Facebook, or you see an actor give an interview or somebody, they just come off so confident. And it's hard to imagine that the person's, deals with deficits in self-esteem or depression, anxiety. But I've dealt with all of those things and continue to, but I don't let them destroy me or control me. I fight to rectify them, to move forward, to grow. I try not to compare myself to people, especially not people that I don't know their context and I don't know their issues or their struggles. So I think it's very, very important to just keep growing, to be ourselves, to be our best selves. And that's why I can't wait to get this show going with Mark. I think it's going to be very beneficial to me and my own psychological and emotional growth. And I think it'll help a lot of people, other people as well. Manu says, I'm getting a diagnosis for a personality disorder, and control is a characteristic of it. I control even my emotions to the point of repression. Control needs to be balanced or it will fuck you up. Yeah, I'm interested, Manu, to know what is that personality disorder you're talking about. It sounds like obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is different from obsessive compulsive disorder, and that obsessive compulsive disorder, I believe, is an axis 2, and regular obsessive compulsive personality disorder, I think, is an axis 2 disorder, whereas regular obsessive compulsive is either axis 1, but I think it's axis 3. Okay, I want to go back a little bit and see the question that I had over here. Katie Ellis says, Michael, from a psychology standpoint, do you have any suggestions for best way to deal with depression while dealing with going through the grieving process? I'm struggling a lot. Whew, wow. What I would say, Katie, is life happens, and it doesn't matter what we're dealing with, what we're struggling with. More things happen, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. A lot of my problems in life stemmed from my interpretation of my parents' behavior when I was growing up, especially my mother. My mother had overdosed a couple times, plus my father was always in and out. I was neglected, and I internalized that as a lack of self-worth, as if I was always going to be abandoned. So I really struggled with abandonment. And because of that, I tried to control everything, people, to a really absurd degree, that ultimately contributed largely to ending up in prison. And I decided to start working on that. And my biggest fear that I always had was my mother dying. And that was at the root of it. And I started to work on it. And I started to challenge my own thinking in relation to my abandonment fears, about my own worthlessness, about people abandoning me. I had to go through a series of things every night, in my mind, about how, no, I actually am not an unworthy human being. I'm not inherently unlovable. People aren't going to abandon me. I can take it if I suffer loss. And so I kept doing that over and over and over and over again. And while I was doing that, my mother committed suicide. And it was devastating. And, this was the ultimate form of abandonment. And what I had to do was, I guess I didn't have to. That's a poor choice of words. What I chose to do was to learn from it and to say to myself, well, if I can take this and I'm living, then I can deal with loss. I don't need to fear abandonment. I can take it. And to learn that lesson helped me grow probably, exponentially. It really did. Now, that's not to say that depression and sadness aren't normal when we suffer loss, right? When we suffer loss, it's painful. It can be worse than physical pain. And we just, you don't want to deny yourself your own humanity. You need to feel those emotions, in my view, to go through them. But at the same time, understand that it's all temporary, that regardless of the loss that we have to keep living. And we can't just live our lives depressed about the loss of somebody else's life, because then we're not living. And that, in a way, dishonors the person. I don't know how long ago now, a little over a year and a half, my girlfriend Melissa died of lung cancer. And I thought when my mother died that I would never experience a pain like that again. And when Melissa died, it was like a piece of me was just ripped off with no anesthesia. It was the worst pain I've ever experienced by far. And I wanted to just, crawl into a corner. But when Melissa was living, she told me, don't do that. She said, you have to keep working. You have to keep building your podcast. You have to keep living your life. And it just occurred to me, Melissa had a beautiful boy at that time, 4-year-old son, Vincenzo. And I told her, when I make it big, I will make sure he's taken care of. And it just occurred to me that if I don't move forward, if I don't build this podcast, if I don't continue to grow, I'll never make it. So if I want to be able to honor the promise I made to Melissa, then I need to, get on my feet and keep going. And it was hard. It was tough. And I never denied myself the pain, but I also had to understand that life goes on. You have to continue growing and you have to continue moving. And, an interesting thing, just to demonstrate, or give it, I don't know if it's give an example, but when I was once talking to Melissa, and this was before she ever got sick, but we were talking about death, and she told me she would want me to die before she died. And I thought that was a little weird, because most people would flip it. And she told me she didn't want me to ever have to experience the pain of that loss, because she understood that that was so much worse than death. That pain is just excruciating. But at the same time, we just have to go. We have to move forward. And the last time I ever saw Melissa, I was in the hospital, and she had had a stroke, and she was, couldn't speak. But the doctor told me she could hear me and understand me. And I told her, if you can understand me, give me a hug. And she gave me a hug, and then she pushed me as if to say, get out of here and go get on with your life. And I think that that's the best thing that we can do, is understand it's going to be painful, but also understand that it's not the end of the world. And we ultimately have to move on. We have to keep living. That's what life is about. Okay. Anderson Cooper. Don't know anything about him. Okay. Does capitalism not ultimately take control away from the public? Well, first of all, let's do a little epistemological analysis of what do you mean by the public. There is not the public that's divorced from the individuals that make it up. And capitalism offers the ultimate freedom to the individual. The individual is free to succeed or fail. Now, life is inherently a struggle. I mean, nobody is guaranteed life. Nothing is provided to us in terms of food, shelter, clothing. I mean, somebody might work and provide it to us, but the stuff doesn't just appear. Somebody has to produce it. Somebody has to work. Some people are born in better circumstances than others, but ultimately capitalism is the best at offering the freedom to the individual to control his or her own life. Under other systems, socialism, for instance, the government controls you. The public doesn't control the government. The government controls the people that you're calling the public. So no, capitalism does not ultimately take control away from the public. And if you ask me if I think the Jews control the world, please do not back up and tell me that you are not a troll, that it's a serious question. It's not a serious question, and you're out. See you later. All right, let's see. Do we have any other good questions? I don't see a question. If I work a 9 to 5 for my whole life and retire at 65, did I really even live? Well, of course you did. Work is a part of life. We have to work in order to eat. We have to work in order to have shelter, in order to be able to afford things, to do things. Things need to be produced, and the only way to produce them is from working. So, yes, you've lived if you work 9 to 5. Now, if you, through your own choices, end up in a job that you don't like and you refuse to leave, if you have that risk aversion that we talked about earlier, well, then that's on you. I mean, I'm not saying that nobody ever suffers through no fault of their own or can't make it through no fault of their own. Of course, that happens. But capitalism, a free market economy, offers us the best chance to succeed, the best chance to be our best self, to grow, to have productive relationships, to enjoy our existence. Katie Ellis is what's with all the trolls today. I don't know, but if they're boosting the viewership, then that's okay. The views have gone way down now for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it was my story about depression and grief. Let me see if we can get one more article in maybe before we go. Oh, here was a good article. This article talked about the labor numbers that came out recently. In the art, I'm going to post it right now to X so everyone can read it. The guy says that the people that do the Bureau of Labor Statistics are very good. No, Katie, you do not have to be sorry. Yours was a good question. I think that's a great discussion. If people don't want to hear it, I think that's their bad, not yours. So please feel free to bring that type of question whenever you want to. But anyway, so the article says that it's understandable that they initially get the numbers wrong and then revise them. And the numbers, this is not from some left-wing organization. It is from the people at the American Institute for Economic Research. They're more libertarian than anything else. But the article says that, look, these are things that happen. The revisions happen, but that's normal. And they actually get it much closer, percentage-wise than you probably would suspect. So that just points again to the absurdity of Trump, firing somebody who gave him numbers he didn't like. Okay, so I had a question earlier about the tattoos. So this will be a little bit of fun now. The question was, how many tattoos do I have, and do they have any meaning? So I've got, let me see, I think I've got 7, but we're going to count and make sure. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I've actually got 8. And yes, they do mean something. So let me see which arm here. It's tough. Oh, okay, this arm. So this was my first tattoo ever. What happened the day that I got that tattoo, I got suspended from school. And I was waiting for my friends to pick me up, but they were busy smoking marijuana, so they took an awful long time to come get me. So already aggravated because of the situation of getting suspended from school and whatever I was angry about that caused me to get suspended from school. Now added to that was the aggravation from waiting for the people that were supposed to pick me up. And that day I happened to get some money. My grandfather, before he died, bought me some stock and I would get dividends. So that day I had some dividends and I was pissed off. And I said, well, what can I do? I'll go get a tattoo. And I happened to look on the wall and I combined 2 tattoos to make this one, which is a somewhat common tattoo. But it illustrated what I was at 18. I was a pothead who was, very dark and angry. So the skull seemed to fit and the fedora seemed to fit. The next tattoo I got was my name. This was an interesting tattoo because my friend went to get his tattoo and I wanted one and he had $40 left over and my name was all I could afford. So I got that. The next was my dog. This was my pit bull Chief. I got him tattooed on my arm. I then got this on my chest. Now, you can't tell, and that is by design, but it actually says mom. It's done in the shape, in the form of vines, because I wanted it to be, so you couldn't actually see it clearly, but I would know what it was. So that had serious meaning. I had a girl's name. Let me see if I can get it over here, tattooed right here. A girlfriend of mine. Kind of a mistake, but not really, because I was able to get it covered up. I then got the Al Capone on my arm because I wanted to be a gangster. So I went and got Al Capone. And then the day I got the Al Capone, I got the cover up of the other tattoo with the snake that the tattoo artist offered. And then when I got out of prison, I had a gang tattoo from when I was in prison that I wanted to cover up. So I got, this is really a pain in the ass. I got Egoist. You can't really see it, but I got Egoist tattooed over the faded gang tattoo. And then the last tattoo I got was the tattoo of the self-made man, because, well, I really admire self-made men, and I consider my character to be self-made. So that had meaning. So all my tattoos have meaning. They tell a story of where I was at each part of my life. So I won't get rid of them. I won't even get rid of the Al Capone. I go around, I'll wear a tank top. If somebody doesn't like it, that's fine. But if they ask, I'll explain it like I just did. All right. So we are, I think, out of time. Once we've seen Diego talking about his penis, I think it's pretty obvious that it's time to go. I don't know what about the capitalist corner makes him think of that, but maybe it's just me and my tank top. But anyways, so capitalist thought of the day. Lee says we have 8 minutes. Well, then, Lee, you should be asking a good question. You can't just demand that I keep talking. You have to offer something in trade. And what I'm asking for in trade are good questions. Okay, we're getting way ahead of ourselves in the chat now. So if somebody has a good question, I'm absolutely willing to. Am I excited for Taylor's new album? No, I don't have any of Taylor's albums, Lee. I just like her when she comes on the radio. I will say once in a while play Taylor Swift, but I had her in prison and I kind of really played her out, but I still love her. Okay, Deeper with Diego says, I asked a question early. What is your prediction for the next presidential cycle in general? And my answer is, I haven't got the slightest fucking idea. The news cycle happens so rapidly. There's no telling what is going to happen between now and then. If you forced me to bet on it, I'd bet that I bet the Democrats win, but I don't know. Greg Lewis says, have you read or listened to Thus Spake Zarathustra? No, I haven't read that particular book. I do have the Nietzsche Reader, and there are a lot of excerpts from that. I'm relatively familiar with it, but no, maybe I should read it. I've got a lot to read though, Greg. But maybe I should read it. I've always wanted to, but I've always wanted to read a lot of stuff. For instance, Albert Camus, I've wanted to read, and I haven't read him. There's stuff by Dostoevsky I still haven't read, like The Idiot and the Gambler. I still haven't read Victor Hugo's The Man Who Laughs, and I would want to. I'd want to read that. I think there was a question up there that I just missed about the 13 keys. Do I think they still work? And again, I haven't got the slightest idea. They have been pretty successful, so I wouldn't just discount them, especially not with the anomaly that was this last election where the candidate, seemed to have dementia or something and passed out, didn't pass out, physically, but left the race, passed out of the race. So, yeah, put the American Capitalist Party background behind you for the next EPS. I don't know what an EPS is, so maybe that's episode. I don't have that. Anyways, the American Capitalist Party. I like what's behind me. I like Carpenter's Hall. EPS, I think, is episode, but whatever. So what's that? That's a good idea, Manu. But, the thing is, remember that the views expressed here don't necessarily indicate the views of the American Capitalist Party. Okay, capitalist thought of the day. When will I have Diego on the show? Diego hasn't asked. So, the capitalist thought of the day, I think I'm going to. Wait, what, Cat? I'm sounding as old as Mark? Why am I sounding as old as Mark? What? Why do you say that? Why do you say that, Kat? That's crazy. As old as Mark. Mark is 11 or 12 years older than I am, Why would you say that, Kat? I'm very, very curious before I go. Now Lee is going to get Kat. Okay. Enric knows that I'm young. All right. So the capitalist thought of the day. What the hell can it be? I guess I'm really going to have to delve deep into my resources. No, I don't know what EPS means, not because of my age, but because I was in prison most of my life. So I didn't come across these things. It has nothing to do with age. That's also why I'm very technologically inadequate. You have to understand, when I went to prison, they still had flip phones. That was it. Okay. So the capitalist thought of the day, let's deal with trolls, right? In a free society, no matter what, there's going to be things that we don't like, but there's going to be things that we don't like in any society. People are free in a free society to be trolls if they want to, but we are free to not pay attention to the trolls. We're free to block them here or block them on X or block them anywhere, or we can make fun of them. We're free to do whatever we want. And as long as the government is not interfering in the situation, I'm fine with it. The government shouldn't ban trolls. The government shouldn't ban our responses to trolls. And it's the same with free speech in general. People are free to say what they want. That doesn't mean that they need to be given a microphone to do so. That doesn't mean that we have to listen, because we have the same freedom. That's what capitalism is about. It's all about liberty. Now, a little bit of housekeeping, some stuff that I forgot. Remember to like this episode. Also, remember to share this episode from YouTube to your favorite platforms. Also, we're getting 5 comments on the YouTube station. Go to the YouTube station and leave comments. It helps with the algorithm, even if it's just to say hello. I don't care, but go there and do it. Also, check out the AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Check out the Rational Egoist podcast. And remember to check your premises. And I will see you in a little bit more than 23 hours. 23 hours. Kaya, thank you so much. You have a great day. Everybody have a great day.